Hello. In this video, I'm going to cover a wide range of topics revolving around the DCA module and the combination analyzer DCA. Let's start with that the analyzer DCA combination is no longer alpha. It has been mainlined into the regular analyzer module. So let's go find it. Right here, the regular standard analyzer is now the combination module. I'm going to put this on the main chart. You don't have to. I just prefer to for convenience. And I'm going to turn off all the unnecessary stuff right away. The analyzer DCA, or just DCA, whichever way you want to refer to it, has had quite a significant upgrade over the last month or so. So I'm going to end up doing a whole new video on the DCA complex just to describe its new features. So let's start with a very simple aggressive recipe and then go through and answer one of the questions that I've been asked multiple times. How do you turn something as aggressive as JRling into a defensive recipe? Well, I'm going to show you. Okay, here we are, pretty aggressive. Now let's link the analyzer. And you can see 7 buys. Let's get rid of these purple arrows. Come over to style. Trades on charts, we don't need those. So there we are, 7 purchases. Now we can make it more aggressive if we want. And let's go all out aggression. And now you see it has drastically increased. But we can make this more aggressive even still. Let's come into the analyzer. Let's go to price and aggressive. Oh yeah, 151 positions with a total of 730 total buys. This is insanity. Let's zoom this in. This is major insanity. Now, here we have an incredibly powerful and insane recipe. Let's make it more insane. We're not done yet with this insanity. Let's make it off the wall insane. Here we go. Let's 346 positions. That's insane. That's not something I'd want to trade, to be honest. But we're going to show you, and we're going to see how I can turn this Frankenstein mess into something more manageable. And it's not really difficult with JRling. Let's come here. There's going to be two things we're going to do. Normally this defaults to 3. So let's see what the normal results are. Still, 96 positions is quite a bit. Let's move this to 3. Actually, let's go one more. Let's go to 4. And as you can see, that limits it too much. So let's just use 3. That's a reasonable amount. But now, come down here. And that's the confirmation. We don't want that. We want this one. Let's invert the signals. Now, let's look at this. See the numbers here. And let's zoom this in a little bit. 6%, 115 positions. So let's come back down here. Now let's go back to this. So we're going to go from 115 positions maximum to 9 positions maximum. Let's separate this out. And there we are. So just a few changes in looking at the way this buys and sells. We've gone from over $1,000 to $100 using a very aggressive approach. And there are other things we can do besides this. So let's try another time frame. 7 positions. And sometimes you do have to scroll things up. 5 positions, but a 20% profit. So, things to look for. And I've talked about JRling's unique properties before, and they should not be understated. It is an incredible tool and one of the more unique recipes. As you can see, going back in history, it misses a lot of drops. I wouldn't say it gets the highest possible range, but it's certainly one with a good combination. But we're not done yet. I want to take this down a little more. But before I do, let's see what this shows up in the strategy tester. So here it is in the strategy tester. Let's go to the 30-minute. Not bad. Now, another technique that I use a lot, and I personally tend to swear by it, is I like crazy numbers. I'll start out at a 4% deviation, and I'll end at a 24% deviation. So basically I have a 20-point range between my first purchase and my last purchase. And as you can see, it drastically reduces the purchases. and you'll also see the profit basis increases as well. Now, it's often come up in terms of which numbers do I prefer, these numbers or these numbers. I personally prefer numbers I can stick on paper and work out the math by hand, and that would be these numbers. I have yet to figure out any of TradingView's black magic butchery. So for me, I generally don't use these numbers. I use these numbers. I can take 2 trades times this percentage, and it tells me what I need to know. I can also take this percentage times my position size, and that tells me what I need to know. These numbers aren't so easy, but the strategy engine does have the advantage of one single alert for both, and that is important. One alert for both buying and selling, and it figures out everything in the middle. For a lot of people, that is a big bonus because it doubles the size of your alerts. So it should not be ignored for the benefit that it does offer. But for me, these are the numbers I prefer. They make more sense to me, and they are better suited for what I would consider real-world mathematics. Okay, now let's go back down to 1 minute. So 4 trades, 6%. So for this trade cycle, 24% profit with a maximum buys per cycle of 3. This is a good recipe that does well using an incredibly aggressive approach with a few minor changes. And there are really a lot of good combinations. So let's go back to the changes in JR-Link. So 3 and 3, and then the part that makes the whole thing work, invert your signals. That's it. Then of course, whatever DCA settings you want. Now let's go to another example. Let's reset this out so I can close this out. Now let's go crazy. Let's pick something off the wall. Something that, well, really should not be used by itself, but has a way of producing some really interesting results. Now we wait for TradingView to take forever. Okay, let's start by linking this to the A rune. And you'll see straight away, just with default settings, 8 cycles. Still more than I want, but let's see what we can do with this. What kind of insanity can we do? Well, we're going to find out. I've never used a rune by itself other than a few test bed examples. So let's see what we can accomplish. Oh, smoothing. Let's go with an EMA smoothing. Alright, that's taking it down. Let's see what an RMA does. Okay, there's RMA. let's see what a weighted moving average accomplishes. Okay, that's higher than I want. Volume weighted, not much of a difference. Oh, oh, that's definitely a lot more purchases. Remember that Jackrabbit is as much visual as it is mathematical. Sine weighted. Okay, that's still a little too high for what I want. Ooh, that's surprising. This smooths it out quite a bit, but it's just under 80, so let's set these to 75, 75. Okay. Okay, there we go, 70. But let's go to 73. I'm looking for weird numbers deliberately to avoid harvesting because this is such a simple approach. So we're down to 3. Now let's do some crazy stuff. We're down to 1. One cycle for 1 minute with an 11%. That is not bad. It's not aggressive, but it's not bad. Okay, this one's still cooking, but only 1 cycle. So there are a lot of ways of actually finding unique combinations that aren't normal. And this one works in both ways. But as you can see, inverting a rune really restricts it. So it's something you want to be careful with. But here on a 15-second chart, 17% average with only 2 maximum buys per cycle. So if you use inverted on an A rune, it's going to be drastically slower. If you use just a regular uninverted A rune, you'll get slightly more aggressive, but you can still control how many purchases per cycle by doing simple techniques. Now remember that I have this set up in price aggression for 24. So in this case with 2 cycles, the first purchase takes place at 4% deviation. The second position takes place at the 24th deviation. A very significant defensive approach. And it still does quite well considering. Let's back this up a little. And Here we go. 4%, 24%. So such techniques can really help aggressively protect your trading. Nothing over here, no positions. 4% from the deviation to the average. 24% from the deviation to the average. Of course, it looks strange because of the way the chart looks, but this is correct. So, this is what 24% below here would look like. So it gives you an idea of just how easy you can take any recipe and with very little work go from an incredibly aggressive recipe to an incredibly defensive recipe. Okay, nothing back there. So let's try another one. Let's take a classic favorite. Again, let's disable this. And let's go with MACD, one of my favorites. Now we know how well MACD performs, and we know how aggressive MACD can be. But can it be the ultimate killer recipe that is defensive? Let's find out. Okay, let's link it right away so we can get an idea of what it looks like while we are working on it. Okay, max buys per cycle 3. 2.5%. And right away, when you look at all the buys and sells, because we're still running before 24, right away you see an incredible defensiveness within the recipe. So something as simple as just those minor changes. Let's even step this up a little. Go with primes. Turn on the chart. Signal line. So now we have an incredibly aggressive approach. Remarkably brutal. And yet, because of the dynamic deviation, we have an incredibly defensive approach. And this is on the 15-second chart. Let's move to the 5-minute chart. Okay, as you can see, same thing, but now it's taking 11 purchases per cycle. And as you can see, it starts out small, but as the deviations grow, remember it's spreading 20% out across 11 positions right now. So that's roughly a little less than 2% every time this goes down. And this is still the price aggressive. Let's see if we can break the rules a little. What happens if I invert the signals? An inverted MACD. Not much, to be honest, except it did a number to the profit. So we went from 2% profit to 5% profit just by inverting it. Okay, let's turn this off. Okay, 3.5% with 11 positions. 5.6% with 8 positions. Now this is using strategies buy and sell. What happens if we use take profit to sell? Okay, 8 positions, 67 trades, 2.8%. That's fairly respectable. Now let's come back and let's go back to an inverted. All right, no, that is inverted. So let's see what it's like not inverted. Not much of a difference this time. So as you can see, different ways of looking at the market to produce different results. But that is what you need to do. And in all honesty, when I'm doing these experiments like this, just playing around to try to find something, I really don't know what the results are going to be. Because the combinations are simply beyond what I might know for standard trading. Okay, let's go through and let's try another crazy routine. See what we can come up with. Okay, what would produce an incredibly aggressive? Oh, let's go with parabolic SAR. This can be brutal, but it can also be very profitable if you plan your budget. And I've used this many times as a recovery recipe. But it can be aggressive and vicious at low time frames. So it's something you have to be aware of. High time frames are incredible. For example, if we move to the daily, $37% profit. So this can be one of the best recovery techniques for higher time frames. But for lower time frames, it can be difficult. Now, as you see, we're still running the 424. And just with this simple deviation, it really limits the amount it takes on. Now, all I'm going to do here is see how well it inverts. I've actually never tried this before, so this is going to be interesting. Not much of a difference, to be honest. Not much of a difference at all. Recipe. Let's go to the ultimate aggressive recipe and at the same time the ultimate defensive. Momentum. An inverted momentum can be incredibly powerful and incredibly defensive. But a non-inverted momentum can be an incredible accumulation approach. So let's see that process. So first I'm going to set up with extreme accumulation. Let's link it so we can see the changes as they happen. Now, this is a simple crossover. But again, notice that no matter what we put on this, because of the dynamic deviation, it automatically slows everything down. So here it is, a simple crossover. That's it, and yet only 3 positions on a 15-second chart. Okay, so let's set this up for a maximum aggression level. Let's go with an SSMA, momentum, and I'm going to go with the standard high-low, just so I get all of my standard features for my momentums. Now, non-inverted. So this normally is an insanely aggressive recipe, and yet only 3 positions. So let's set this to a more normal deviation, something that I commonly use and does very well. Standard 2% deviation and 313 positions. So as you can see, it does incredibly well as an accumulator. Now let's take and go to step method and go to defensive. All of my normal trading approaches. And even still, it does 8. Which isn't bad, but it purchases as the market drops because it's not inverted. So all of these purchases are potentially there. So let's ramp it up and see what it looks like in full aggressive state. So let's do a full saturation of volume, 1% deviation. Okay, 2% take profit, 105, maximum 15 at this point. So it's dropped 15% with a 1% deviation. That's not bad, but it can drop 100 positions using this. But now let's see what happens when I go to full aggressive. When I just step it up and go insane. 1% deviation. Yeah, the budget killer. Looks nice. All the fuzzy logic is working perfectly. And this just took $4,000. And this, if you was to take this into a total number, That would be $19,000. That's expensive. And that's not something we can manage. But we can bring it down to earth. Well, actually, let's go one step further first. Let's show it at the most extreme. This would bring home a very good profit, but it would be an absolute insane budget. And as you can see, it's actually taking time. Oh, it broke the system. Okay. We broke the system. It's so extreme. So, we know that won't work. Okay, on to a perfect defense. $10 trades, maximum 3 positions. Not bad. So 20% divided by 3 is 714, a little less than 7% each step. And of course, it will dynamically adjust itself as it grows. And this is price aggression. So using the most extreme, a non-inverted momentum, where you deliberately follow the price down, and yet you can still limit the number of purchases. Nice and simple and easy approach. And it doesn't take anything to figure out combinations. For example, you can start at 2% and at 31%. And it will come up with a balance in between those two. So it's a very nice way of controlling your risk. And you still do pretty good. 14 trades is not bad. And this is roughly a 24-hour period. So 14 trades a day, 2% average trade, you're looking at roughly 28% of your base position. So $11, a little less than $3 a day, given this very simple approach. And that is how you take aggression and make it defensive. And it works on anything you can think of. Any recipe, small changes can have big impacts. You don't need to go very advanced or very extreme. I said I was going to make this one the last one, but I think I want to demonstrate one more. It's a very common technique. It's a very simple technique, and a lot of people like it. And that is just a very simple RSI. That's all this is. So we wait for TradingView to load it. Okay, and I don't even know if I'm going to make any changes with this. Notice how well this is working. I've taken 5 different approaches, and all 5 approaches I've come back with the same basic restrictions. 3 positions. Now let's see if I can, okay, let's move from RMA to, let's go with SSMA. See what it looks like. Okay, now notice how extreme this is. If I was to go to a 1% deviation, let's try it. Let's try 1% and 1%. There we are. Now let's try something simple and defensive. That's it. And I didn't even touch this recipe other than make it more aggressive. Okay, let's do some more tinkering here. Oh, let's go with old school. Let's do a super smooth. And let's go up to 19. Okay, let's do we could even make it extreme by going with traditional versus crossing. And it's not going to matter. Our DCA is so defensive, we can make this off the wall insane, and it's still going to protect us. A lot of people like this approach. And it really doesn't matter how you do it. Even doing something like this, it gave us more profit, but it didn't increase our exposure. All of this, simple techniques, simple processes. These are the things that keep you from getting in trouble when the market does crazy stuff. Let's go to a 1 minute. Okay, see, 4 positions. 5 minute, 6% profit, 4 positions. 15 minute, 19% profit, 7 positions. And these techniques aren't difficult. They're not hard. They're not complicated. And the exposure is extremely minimal. 19% again. Let's go back to the 5 minutes, since that's comfortable for most people to trade on. Now let's go to the exchange with the crazy coins. We all know what we're talking about. Coins you shouldn't trade. But let's face it, if you gotta trade it, why not do good at it? 11 trades, basically 1 month, 8% average. Not bad. And remember, We're using price methodology with absolute aggression. But the deviation is the secret for controlling this insanity. This is a coin I would not trade at all, as it has a history of 3,000 positions. That's a $30,000 budget. And yet, look at it now. With the new DCA dynamic deviation, it is doing exceptionally well. And I would actually trade this coin now. I would feel comfortable trading this coin now. And know that I did not have to worry about my total positions. Worst case scenario, 24%. It's not going to take me long to extinguish the entire volume of the coin, so I simply can't accumulate very much. Basically 4 positions and wipes out the entire volume at maximum level. Now, it's not going to be that as it grows and it recalibrates appropriately, but it's still going to be a very defensive approach, even for the price action. Let's see what other coins we have. Okay, this one's a little bit high, 6 positions. 2 positions. 5 positions. Let's see. Let's start at the top and see what's the worst performing coin. My worst performing, the one that takes the highest budget, even with an incredibly and insanely defensive recipe. Okay, that is 8 positions. Right now, that's the worst. Algorand. Wow, 13 positions. And yet, look at the profit. That's still only roughly about $150. Worst case scenario. And as you can see, when you look at the deviation, notice how it is altering itself appropriate to the mathematics and dynamic ratios. So far this is our worst coin. Okay, again you can see the number of tiers and steps changes dynamically as the coin develops and grows. That's what you want. Dynamic and defensive. So 13 positions. Okay, Atom 2. Band, another horrible coin to work with. 15 positions. But still, for price aggression, this is incredibly tame. So, let's see if we have anything that beats 15 positions. So far, quite a few coins, but nothing that bad. And it's still actually worth looking at. That seems strange to say, but it's still not bad. Okay, so as you can see, so far 15 is the worst. Let's see if we can find that coin again. And let's see what we can do with this simple recipe to control it. Okay, here we are. Banned. All right, so 15 positions. We want to take this down. Well, the easiest approach let's raise this to 80, lower this to 20. Okay, let's increase our RSI length to 31. That does a pretty good job. Now we're still running the inverted, but we've just taken a nightmare coin and brought it down to earth. Let's go with the regular RSI though. Non-inverted. Let's see what would happen. Okay, it's so defensive now that it actually requires a larger time frame to see a complete cycle. But that is one, not what I want, sweet profit. One position, 77% price increase. That is absolutely insane. Heaven only knows how long you have to wait for that position. And let's see if we can actually go find out. Okay. So we have April 21. How long did it take this to cook? Well, it looks like you could pull out any time you wanted. So November to April. 6 months. So for 6 months waiting, with you being able to exit the market anytime you wanted, a 77% profit. That is unbelievable. Okay, let's see what it looks like at the 30-minute. Actually, let's try some other techniques here. Come down here and $97% profit for one trade cycle. That is unbelievable. And the amount of time you have to hold it is jaw-dropping. But you can certainly find some incredible golden little gems with very simple techniques. Okay, so when you're using the new DCA module, don't underestimate how well a dynamic deviation works. That's first and foremost, because no matter how aggressive your recipe is, that dynamic deviation can bring it down incredibly fast. Second, when you're looking for different combinations, don't be afraid to think out of the box and try different things. There are a lot of combinations that can be incredible. And with very simple changes, you can find unusual results. Remember, Jackrabbit is as much visual as it is mathematical. Use that to your advantage to find the best situations that don't often require complicated setups. Until next time.